today's video, we're making pretty, floral, leafy Mother's Day cards that are simple and beginner friendly. Hello all you amazing and lovely people, welcome back. In today's episode, we're creating several different simple leafy and floral designs for you to try, especially for Mother's Day. So quickly going over the supplies for today, we're going to be using some blank brown paper card. Of course, you can use any kind of colour card that you would like. I just like how the white designs that we're going to be doing today look on brown paper. Which leads nicely onto the next item, which is a white posca paint pen for the main bulk of the leafy designs, and a Signo Uni-ball and a size 10 Gellyroll white gel pen for any of the finer details. For one of the cards, I wanted to add a little splash of colour, so I used Winsor Newton's zinc white and spectrum red gouache for a lovely matte chalky finish. If you like me, my typography skills are not the best, so for the first card, I'm going to cheat and print off the word mum and make myself a stencil to work with. I chose this nice bold serif font, one because it'd be nice and easy to cut out, and secondly, having a large bold font allows for more space to add any designs. I used just printer paper for making my stencil, however, I recommend that if you have anything thicker than your average printer paper, then use that. Where the paper is so thin, it made it quite tricky to cut out with a craft knife, and then also made a very flimsy stencil, and so you'll notice I end up having to hold the stencil down. If you have a Cricut or a similar machine, you can also use that to make your stencil. But anyways, with the stencil made, I tape down the stencil on top of the card to secure it in place, and then with the white posca paint pen, I start adding lots of leafy designs. And we're going to space those out all over the lettering, trying to create the shape of the letter by adding as much of the leaves along the edge of the letter, while still leaving some negative space. And we're going to continue to add a load of these basic pointy leaf shapes across all three letters, but still leaving enough space for adding some more intricate and delicate designs with the white gel pens, which we will add as soon as we've finished adding all of these chunkier leaves. I kept making the silly mistake of putting my fingers on the leaves whilst the paint was still wet, which obviously led to me taking some of the paint off the paper with my fingers. By happy accident though, I did like the effect of having some leaves more vibrant than others. I did go back over some of the leaves that I'd muted once the paint from the pen had dried, but some I left as they were. So once I thought there was enough of the bigger leaves, I started getting out the white gel pens and adding more intricate designs around those leaves. And I'm holding down that flimsy paper and making sure that I add lots of designs around the edge of the lettering and building up lots of delicate florals and leaves around those big chunky leaves. And then once you've filled in enough space in between those letters, when you take the stencil away, you'll be left with a really elegant and sophisticated design. With the stencil removed, I pick out a few leaves here and there that I think need brightening or neatening up, and it really is as simple as that. And in my opinion, the end result is quite effective. You could also experiment with other colours too. As one example, you could possibly pick out a certain leaf design in a particular colour. But for now, we're going to move on to the second card. Now this one is even easier. I've grabbed a pencil and ever so lightly written the word mum, which I've done in a very simplistic handwritten font. And I've tried to keep my pencil lines as light as possible because I want to go over those pencil lines with the white gel pen, and it will potentially show up if you go too hard on the pencil lines. And then for this card, we're simply going to be going around the lettering that we've just created, again with some very basic leaf shapes, and then the occasional little flower poking out here and there. There's no meticulous planning on where I'm going to add bits and bobs to my lettering. I'm just going with the flow and adding flowers here and there and little elements to the lettering where I think it's needed. And then we're just going to continue along each letter, making each letter bolder with these florals and leafy shapes. Now, if you're not from the UK, you're probably thinking, Lynette, this video is a little bit early for Mother's Day. It seems that most other countries, Mother's Day is on the 14th of May. But here in the UK, this year, it's on the 19th of March. So apologies if this seems a little bit premature, but it just means I've got you covered in advance. For our third card, I'm using another stencil made out of rubbish printer paper. This time I'm going to try and stick it down with washi tape to secure it in place a little better than just using my hands. And this time I'm going for a heart shape, which I thought would be a good idea to show that lovely lady in your life some extra love. Again, I'm using a very simplistic handwritten font. If you're really good at typography, then feel free to experiment in a much more elegant and beautiful cursive font than I have done. And then once again, I'm using the Posca paint pen to make lots of basic chunky leaf shapes and trying to fill in along the edges as much as possible with these leaves, which will help us form the shape of the heart. And then I'm forced to take a short break as Bob decided to jump up on my desk and walk all over everything because he decided that it was time for me to give him a cuddle and lots of ear rubs. Now I could have edited out this interruption from my video, but I know there's a few of you subscribers out there that love to see Bob when he demands his camera time, and besides he's adorable and a lot more camera friendly than I am. I didn't want to leave though, and I had to get my husband to shake a packet of Dreamies just to distract him and get him away from my desk so I could get on. So anyways, back to the card. So I continue adding these bold leaf shapes around the heart. And then once I think I've added enough but not too much, I then start using my fine liners and adding more delicate leaves around the mum and the leaf shapes. And I'm just going to continue to add lots of little florally leafy designs into the heart until I think it's filled out enough, while still making sure that I leave lots of negative space and you can still see a lot of the brown paper between all of the designs. And once I think enough is enough, I can take the stencil away and reveal, rather satisfyingly, a design that is really quick and simple to make, but super effective. So for the final card that I'm going to be showing you today, I thought do something a little bit more different than just using the white Posca paint pens and the gel pens. I'm reusing the stencil that we used with the first card, but this time using a pencil to draw around the shapes of the letters. And I'm going to mix up some zinc white and some spectrum red gouache to mix up a really pretty and delicate pink. I thought pink and white would look really lovely against the backdrop of the brown paper, but obviously you can use any colour that you choose. It might be a good idea to use maybe your mum's favourite colour, and also you don't necessarily have to use gouache. You could definitely use acrylic paint instead. It's just that I really love the velvety chalky effect that you get with gouache, and I think it works really well with the brown paper. And then with my mix of paint, I start filling in the letters. I decided to use the same colour for all three letters, but again, you don't have to do that. You could maybe mix things up and have the U as a different colour, or as an alternative, you could have each letter as a different colour. Once the first coat of paint was dry, I did go over and add another layer, as I wanted to make sure that the paint wash was very uniform. And then with the same two colours that I used to mix together to get the pink, I decided to add some very simplistic rose designs to the lettering. Well, at least a suggestion of what roses look like. And they're just like these little squiggly, irregular, circular shapes, which I did in a very dark pink first, and then added some white gouache on top, and then just kind of moved the paint around over the top of the base of the flower, and then with some almost red, added a dark centre to the rose, and then left the paint to dry before we start adding some more leafy and floral delicate designs around the two M's. I didn't want to add anything to the U because I thought it might end up looking a little bit too busy, and as it's well said, sometimes less is more. So we're adding the same chunky leaves as before, and I'm also adding some dots to the letters, which is making this card look incredibly shabby chic, which is a style that I still love. I think it's kind of timeless, but that's just my opinion. After finishing the dots to the final M, I retire the Posca paint pen and get out the gel pen for the final time. And like with all the other previous cards, I add some more delicate leaves with the gel pen and also add some highlights to the roses. And then as a backdrop to the foliage and the roses, I wanted to add the suggestion of like baby's breath, for which I just drew a line and then lots of dots stemming off from that line. Nothing complex, but still really effective. I did a few more cards off of camera, but very much in the same style. I did a card with the word Nan instead of Mum. I know my granny was very much my mother figure, and I know my children will want to honour their Nan on Sunday. But yeah, these are all very simple cards that anyone could make, and which don't take long to create either. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video and found all these designs useful and inspirational. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a comment, a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much, and for my UK mums, Happy Mother's Day.